So I have a confession. I suggested that we put this episode together, and truthfully, I'm not exactly sure why. Space has never really been my thing. Like, it's always just been there. I even went to a school that was named after one of the astronauts who died in the Challenger explosion. I lived in Waco for several years while SpaceX was literally rattling friends of mine's walls with testings. I lived in Houston, home of NASA, for years. Hell, I dated the son of an actual rocket scientist. And still, to me, space just kind of existed in my periphery. Sometimes I check an app to see where the International Space Station is. I like watching planes and what's going on in the sky for some reason. I like to look up at a clear night sky just to see what I can see and if anybody's moving around up there. But this past week, the Artemis II launch came up and it made me want to ask the question that I never really sat down with. Why don't I care about this? And maybe more importantly, should I?
On the other hand, space is definitely my thing, or one of them at least. I've always thought that I was born a few centuries too early, because what would be cooler than flying a starship across the universe? TV, movies, books, even music. I absolutely consume sci-fi content and wondered what it would take to make many of those things, like starships, warp drives, and exploration, a reality. The sheer scale of outer space, bordering on incomprehensible, means virtually endless possibilities. But growing up, real world application just wasn't really there. There's so much out there that space could be the answer to many of our world's scarcity issues, but science, economics, and materials weren't there to make broader space exploration viable. And don't even get me started on profitable. So it seemed to be on the back burner, waiting for us to catch up. And it seems like we might be finally starting to do exactly that, or at least taking steps in that direction again.
I'm somewhere in the middle of these two, and I can tell you why. Space has been woven into my life in ways I didn't always recognize. My mother basically only watched Star Trek. I remember taking her to the first Star Wars movie, the first one. And I have a son who is absolutely obsessed with everything beyond this atmosphere. So space has always been close. But then there's the Challenger, the explosion that never left. Knowing a civilian was on board, a woman, a public school teacher, the hype that went along with that, I think about that more than people realize. And now here comes Artemis II, and everyone's excited. And I understand the excitement. I do. But you know what? I don't want to go. Zero interest in infinity and beyond outside of the movies. So today I'm walking into this conversation with all of that, the wonder, the grief, the pride, and the very firm intention to keep both feet on this planet. And honestly, that tension between the wonder and the fear, the excitement and the absolutely not, that's exactly what we're getting into today. Welcome to Two Millennials and Mom.
I'm Callie.
I'm Cole.
And I'm Mom.
So, like I said, I'm not super big on all of this space stuff. I have seen the occasional launch streamed on YouTube or some morning show, whatever it was. I have all of these peripheral experiences of space, but I'm not stopping what I'm doing to go and experience this, to take it in any capacity. Unlike Cole, I am not doing any of the sci-fi, but I started thinking about how we all look at this so differently. Like, no pun intended, space is big. Space is a big thing. And I think that it has such a different impact, especially on like our generation and yours, Mom. And so I wanted to talk about that. Like, you've spoken about the Challenger explosion and watching that on TV and all of these like very specific space things. You grew up kind of at the very tail end of the space race and watching all of this take place right in front of you on the news every day, being big deals. And I didn't. And I'm really curious as to how that has shaped you and formed your opinion of the great unknown.
I mean, I think for me, it probably started with an understanding about John F. Kennedy wanting to win that race and this noble exploration. But I also think as a kid that didn't connect with me, how far away that really was. And I don't think growing up there was, at least I didn't hear it much question about did the moon landing really happen? That came much later in my life and probably, really in y'all's life. And so, I mean, it was a national goal, a pride to get to the moon and that we could do this. And I think when the Challenger exploded, I think everybody just broke. I think there was just so much grief. And maybe that was because they had really hyped Krista McCullough going. I mean, I think she was one out of 10,000, 11,000 chosen to go because they wanted to have this teacher in space program. She was supposed to teach her class from space. And I think that made it more personal. This was a civilian. She didn't grow up wanting to be an astronaut. She was a teacher. Yeah, I think that really rocked people.
Weird question, kind of a little bit of a tangent. Because you watched the Challenger explode on TV, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there are similarities into how the nation grieved that the same way that our generation did 9/11?
Probably some. Yeah. 9/11 was, this is going to sound awful. 9/11 was bigger.
Mhm.
It was 3,900 people, not a crew of astronauts. It
9/11
was,
was also an attack. It was
it was,
intentional.
and I was fixing to say that it was an attack and not a national failure.
Oh, okay.
And so I think it was different. I mean, the grief was there, but the grief was different. We've talked in a previous version about people in New York feel differently about 9/11 than I do because I had that distance from New York. It wasn't my people, but I think for the Challenger, we all felt like they were our people. And so I think it was felt closer to home.
I think for me, it just was space. And Cole kind of talked about it in the intro. There wasn't really anything going on when we were kids. It was post the Challenger explosion. I mean, that happened before I was even born, and I never clocked any of it. It was kind of a myth. This all was happening. It happened at some point. It was history. It wasn't relevant and current. And I didn't lean into it the same way that Cole did.
Cole's always been a sci-fi guy, though. From the very beginning, his very first books that attracted him were those kinds of things.
Did space feel important to you, or was it just interesting?
I mean, as I was a kid, it was more interesting. The more I learn, it's both. I mean, Callie, you mentioned earlier that it's really big. It's literally the biggest.
I cannot wrap my brain around, like, Mom, you're talking about Artemis II and nobody's ever gone farther and all of this. And I'm just like, how can they do that in a week? I don't get it. It does not compute. I don't get it.
And see,
I
I
cannot
think
comprehend.
being on the far side of the moon is the part that kind of freaks me out about that whole mission because, and maybe that's because of Apollo 13 and them having to ricochet around and, that being part of that movie and the intensity with that. And I mean, the dark side. And I don't know. We were watching something the other day and I said, would you ever go? And you looked at me like I had to ask the strangest question. And I never thought to ask Cole, probably because I know Cole would get on. I mean, today, if you would say, hey, we need one more, let's go, he would jump on there and I would be in a total panic.
Do you think that would still be the case had you not seen the Challenger explode?
Probably. I mean, probably. That was so traumatic. I mean, it's that part about you've watched so many liftoff and they've all been so uplifting and, celebratory. And then it explodes and you're just sitting there thinking, what just happened?
Punched.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't feel like reality. You literally thought, what is this? And then the reality came and
Yeah.
0 survivors.
To kind of tie it all together, looking at it from like a 30,000 foot view. Mom, you talked about Kennedy and this national desire to win the space race. And I think a lot of that stems from like just the general American mentality. How did America become what it was originally? Manifest destiny.
Mhm.
And after that, what's left? So the next thing, the final frontier, okay, now we have to expand into space. And the Challenger was almost like the universe slapping our hand and saying,
Pushing back.
you're not ready.
Yeah.
Well, and I really do. I think you combine that with we've spent years watching Star Trek, and y'all, you just have no idea. My mom was not a TV person, but she watched Star Trek. And it wasn't because, Shatner was cute. She was fascinated. In fact, Cole, it would be so much fun to put you and her together and just listen to that conversation because she would go with you. I just have no doubt. But I mean, we had Star Trek. You've watched them go and all of the, challenges that they've had. And then you get into Star Wars. And so I think that we have this thing behind us that we've been watching space and thinking about space, but it's not ever really been so real.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're on the deck of the USS Enterprise, you're just on the deck of the ship. You're not thinking about how big space is.
It's literally everything.
Yeah. But warp speed doesn't, when you're watching it on TV, it doesn't
Hit the same.
make a lot of sense. Yeah, it doesn't feel the same. Yeah.
So we had an episode recently where we kept going, okay, but Cole's an outlier. Cole's an outlier. So my question becomes, is Cole still an outlier or am I? Because I'm really curious if this is a conversation that is happening and I just am not part of it. I'm not in that circle. I don't know how that all really works. Is that something that people are talking about regularly? Was it when you
I
were
mean,
growing up?
I have definitely heard multiple people say this week, both in more mainstream settings, like on a podcast, and just in a conversation at work. Why does no one care about this? Why is no one paying attention to this?
Oh.
Interesting.
And see, I think people have been paying attention to it.
But not at scale. Some people, sure.
Yeah. I mean,
didn't
and
get
I
up
would
and
say
watch
I'm
it.
aware of it, but I haven't researched it or dug into it or, and part of that may just be I don't want to get to know them if something goes wrong. I can tell you that in my head, I keep seeing Tom Hanks and during that critical part of Apollo 13, I keep seeing that and thinking, are we going to have another one of those? Is there going to be a movie about this, sometime later on?
I mean, hopefully not. And here's why I say that. Because that quote unquote excitement, that's when shit's hitting the fan.
Yeah.
If it's going, I want it to be smooth sailing for everybody involved.
Yeah.
And I feel like NASA has worked on that really hard.
Which I'm sure that lots of people appreciate.
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel as if I've almost detached myself from like the reality of current space exploration because I've been so transfixed on the fictional side of it and like thinking about all of these massive things that are possible that it's like, okay, wake me up when we get to Mars. Like the moon, whatever. Wake me up when I can go.
Do you think your expectations are out of whack in some capacity?
I don't know that they're out of whack. I just don't think that they are achievable within my lifetime.
I'm kind of surprised that you think that. I mean, Musk is wanting to go to Mars and colonize there. Why do you think that's outside of your lifetime?
Because that's like literally the first step towards some of the things that I'm thinking about. Like, yeah, maybe we get to Mars and colonize it. What resources are we going to be able to extract from Mars and bring back to Earth? Like, is that significant enough? I don't think so. I'm, for lack of a better term, thinking about light years ahead of that, when we've got like things that theoretically probably aren't even possible, like hyperspeed, faster than light travel is likely not possible. So there are things that can be achieved that have been like hypothesized in fictional settings, but using like actual science and data and to say these things are possible. But going to the moon and back is like what excites me is a day trip to the moon, not
And
four
you don't
people are
think that's going to
going.
happen in your lifetime? Oh.
I don't think the moon will be a tourist destination in my lifetime.
Mars?
Well, if the moon isn't, the moon is dozens of times closer than Mars is, so Mars is definitely out of the question.
I mean, they say what, 12 people have walked on the moon?
That's right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I believe it's 12 people have walked on the moon. I have a hard time. I'm kind of with Cole here. Like, I have a hard time rationalizing in my brain that this is going to explode in the next 50 years.
But isn't
maybe.
Artemis, and isn't the plan with Artemis to have a colony in the next 10 years?
Right. But think about colonies. When the first settlers came across the Atlantic Ocean to settle in North America, how many of them went back?
Oh, I don't know.
Virtually none.
Okay.
They were there forever. They were permanent residents in the New World.
And you don't think that'll happen with the moon?
I think that that's the first step, is the people who start the colony on the moon will die on the moon.
Okay.
I also think two kind of things here. Number one, I have a friend who used to say, anything that you do, any plan that you make, is you need to prepare for it to take twice as long and cost twice as much.
Yeah.
Best case scenario. True. So 10 years is automatically a minimum of 20 in my brain. I don't see it going any faster than that. But then there's the old adage about how does it go about men make plans and God laughs?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not some super religious person by any stretch, but at the same time, like, that's funny to me. Like, oh yeah, we're going to have a whole colony on the moon in 10 years. Like, now I'm laughing. I can't get there.
Yeah.
And maybe we can. Regardless, that doesn't just immediately turn the moon into a tourist destination.
Yeah.
You guys.
That doesn't mean I'm going to get to go.
I-35 has been under construction my entire freaking life. How are we going to make it to the moon?
You have a point.
I mean, the bureaucracy and the red tape and all of that has to happen in order for anything to make any kind of significant progress. No freaking way. Out of this world. Literally.
That's funny.
Man.
You have a point, though.
So here's kind of my next question. Why? Why are we doing any of this? What is the purpose of space exploration?
Oh, well, I mean, there are lots of reasons why space is eventually going to be a necessity, not a desire, a necessity.
I hate that part.
Well, resources are not infinite.
I know.
And we are a species, as many other biological species, that has a tendency to increase our population. Now, I know that we've talked recently about declining birth rates. Sure, in the short term. In the long term, we have a non-renewable resource that our entire world economy runs on. Eventually, we will run out. Maybe not in our lifetimes, maybe not in our kids, but again, not a renewable resource. So eventually we will have to find other resources to utilize. There's only so much iron on the planet Earth. There's only so much gold.
I keep thinking that if we continue to ignore the things that we are ignoring, that eventually we won't have a choice. We either die out or we explore, we go somewhere else to do that. And Cole, you had a conversation with us last night while we were talking about this, about whether we were really native inhabitants of Earth.
Yeah,
I mean,
total tinfoil hat moment, guys. But yeah, there is a conspiracy theory that we're not even from here.
If not here, where?
In the specifics theory that I was referencing, we're not really from anywhere. We are a genetic experiment by a race called the Anunnaki from a planet called Nibiru.
I gotta go get the aluminum foil.
I mean, it is out there, but what if it has any basis in reality? And I mean, there's always been the question of, are there other people out there? And certainly science fiction wise, the stories are there.
I talked to someone at work this week who does not believe there is other intelligent life in the universe, and that absolutely boggled my mind.
Yeah, me too.
You guys, we can barely handle illegal aliens in this country. How the heck are we going to handle last frontier aliens?
What if we are
Callie,
the illegal
I was about to
aliens?
say, we might already be.
Yeah. Yeah, and you see how well that came out when America was formed. Now let's go colonize the moon. It's going to be great. Yeah, 10 years, Mom, totally.
For the colony, for the first colony.
Yeah, but if there's other life out there, they're already there.
They might not be.
Maybe not
They
on
could
the
be somewhere
moon.
else. I mean, as
Maybe.
Cole said, this is a big space.
Literally all of it. Again.
Yeah. I mean, but to go back to your question of why are we doing it, I have a couple of things. One, I think part of that is because the human brain wants more, and not every human brain, but there are those out there who just can imagine it and can think about it and want to explore it and know about it and be the first. And so I think that's part of why. I think part of this is just human nature in some ways, that we just want to be there.
I think part of my human nature brain is broken. Like, we suck at contentment. Like, stop wasting things. Stop being horrible. Be content with what you have. Be thankful. I know there's more to it than that and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, there are just different brains out there who think about it differently. And
yeah,
I mean, if you stop, that's where the car came from and the computer came from and the wheel came from.
Yeah,
those
I mean,
feel like
inherently, as a species, we are expansionist. But I mean, here's the thing, Callie. If no one ever had any of those ambitions for expansion, none of us would be here. We wouldn't exist.
Again,
to be thankful.
I just feel like there's smaller leaps that we could take. This is freaking huge.
Again, if any of the leaps that we had made had been smaller, none of us would exist.
But I think we're a perfect example of this. Cole is the one who could take the leap. I'm not. And so I just think it takes different people to be able to do this. And I really thought about this seriously this week as Artemis was getting ready and as you saw these astronauts. And I thought, how do you do this? How do you crawl in a machine that nobody's done this in how many years? 30, 40 years, and go farther and faster? What does it take for you to have the kind of energy and to even want to do that? Because that's totally beyond my comprehension. And yet, I think Cole could do it and would do it.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah. And so I think that's part of the fascinating part, is the degree that people are different about exploration, something new. And yet I'm really grateful, because I think there's a lot of things that came out of the things that NASA did that we, like Cole said, we wouldn't have if that had not happened. And so I'm really grateful for those people who are brave enough, willing to do this kind of exploration.
Do you think that this should be a global effort. We should combine resources with everybody else and say, hey, let's figure out how to get there? Or should we go back to the competitive nature of the space race? Who can do it first, fastest? It feels
Well, I
dangerous to
mean,
me.
I think you can actually have a little bit of both there. Now, should it be an exercise in global cooperation? Yeah, probably, but good luck. I mean, solving world hunger and curing cancer should be too, but we can't get together on those. Ending resource wars should be a global effort, but we can't seem to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
So, like, should we and can we are two very different things. I don't know that we're capable of that as a species.
Do you think that it feels different now that private companies are involved? You've got SpaceX and Blue Origin and things like that who are throwing money at stuff without quite as much bureaucracy that NASA had?
I mean, I certainly think that that is one way to grease the wheels a little bit. I mean, sending anything to the private sector is generally a really fantastic way to either corrupt it beyond recognition or to give
Move it forward.
to give it the biggest boost to innovation, and sometimes both.
Your cynic is showing.
I wear my cynicism on my sleeve.
Yes, you do. You do.
I am not shy about it.
Okay.
So let's get into kind of the next piece of this. Mom, you've been pretty clear. You're not going.
I ain't going.
Are you ever going?
I could see, yes, I could see me going, for instance, if, if there's colonization on Mars and Earth is deteriorating or something along that line. I mean, if it becomes commonplace, like taking a flight from Florida to California, yeah. Do I want to be the explorer who tests that out? No.
I'll go today.
We've been sitting here having this conversation, and I've gone back in my brain to our sword mentality discussion that we had here however many months ago. I think Cole is willing to be the bleeding edge. He'll figure it out. He'll go. He's willing to do it. I think I'm more of the leading edge. Like, okay, I'll take a little bit of a risk. Like, yeah, let's do it. And I think Mom is going to be the
Wait
other
for the
part
cutting
of that.
edge.
What?
Waiting for the cutting edge.
Yeah. Waiting for the cutting edge.
I hate that.
Do you though? Like, what would
Sorry.
it take when it is more commonplace, such as taking a flight from Florida to California? Like, that's what it is. That's the definition.
I still hate it.
Why?
Don't like that about myself. It feels old and close-minded, and I don't like that idea.
So,
Get on the ship.
I mean, you made a comment a second ago about if you were running from something, if the world was deteriorating, then you would go. Like, it feels kind of last resorty. What stops you?
Oh, fear. Just the unknown, I think. I mean, I have never had that risk-taking gene. I just don't. I'm not a gambler at all. I mean, the only time I've gambled has been with nickels, I'm not a gambler. And I think Cole is much more of a gambler.
I'm much less risk averse than Mom.
So, with kind of that taken into consideration, Mom, that space is not really your idea of a good time, but an escape if it has to be, a last resort. Would you ever hop on a one-way trip to Mars
Maybe if Earth was blowing up.
just as a last resort?
I mean, is there a shopping mall there or a
I was just thinking, I
Dairy
was like, oh
Queen
my
or a
God,
Starbucks or something that I want to go
we're going to have to
for?
have it fully commercialized in order for Mom to go.
I mean, can my dog go? Are we going together or am I the only one going? I mean,
Mom has questions.
Yeah, so I know it sounded a little bit like hyperbole earlier when I said, wake me up when we get to Mars. like the reason space exploration is so fascinating to me is because of the freedom that I envision with that.
Hmm.
I want to be a Han Solo. I want to have my ship and go wherever I want to go. I don't necessarily want to be a colonist. I want unfettered freedom.
But again, if you're talking about Han Solo, that was the norm. I mean, that wasn't
Yeah,
him.
that's exactly what I mean.
He
Several
wasn't going,
centuries too
yeah,
early.
yeah.
So if Earth became uninhabitable, who gets to go?
Well, isn't that the story of paradise?
Well, that's worked out so well for them. They didn't leave
Yeah.
Earth, though.
So, I mean, sort of. They left Earth as we know it, but no
And
spoilers for those who haven't seen it. But
there was a system of choosing who got to go.
sure. And like
I mean,
ideally, that's not why we're going to space and becoming starship captains. Like I'm not saying I think the Earth is going to be destroyed, or I want the Earth to be destroyed to force us into space. I just think it would be really cool to go and explore space, and I don't
yeah,
think that will be ready within my lifetime. Maybe we'll figure cryogenics out, and I can freeze myself.
you go for that. I'm not doing that one either.
I just can't figure out, like, again, we as a civilization globally, we can't figure out how to work amongst ourselves. How the heck are we going to start moving people and deciding Americans get to own Mars and the Chinese get to own the moon and the Russians get to, like, we can't figure it out here. How are you going to add extra space to this?
The same way they did it in the colonization era. Whoever gets there first.
Our fights for it longest. And I was just sitting here thinking while you were talking about that. I mean, we are so prejudiced now. Can you imagine what we would be over aliens from Mars, but they look different from Venus? And I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah, we can't handle two different skin colors. How are we going to have two different heads?
Exactly. I mean, Cole, there are people who could do that. And then there are
Sure.
people who are just going to cause problems the whole time.
Welcome to existence. It's always been that way. It's never going to not be that way.
Oh my gosh. So, Cal, you have an interesting question here about should we be spending billions on space when we have so many problems on Earth? I'm curious how y'all think about that.
Well, will spending those billions result in solving any of the problems here on Earth that you're referencing?
I mean, it could. It has the
So I guess the
possibility.
answer is maybe.
Yeah. Dang that, maybe.
I mean, I think that it all comes back down to we don't do a good job at determining and working towards shared priorities. Hey, the goal is to keep the human race intact. And this is what it takes to do that. I think that we are driven by and motivated by greed and ego more than anything else, which I find repulsive. And the moment that you start applying that to a big question like something like this, I kind of shut down. I don't think that we can do it here. I don't understand how expanding the space in which we are fighting over, the resources in which we are fighting over, is going to have any better outcome. I don't think that even if you were to just say, oh, well, only billionaires can go, I think it's still going to devolve into this shit show.
I started to say, do
There's
you
no
think
more
it matters
decorum
who gets
there.
there first if it would be different?
No, I think it's he who has the biggest stick because we are driven by greed and ego. Because
Sure, but just
compassion is
because something
not.
is driven by greed and ego doesn't mean they can't also be compassionate. Those things exist in tandem all of the time.
I think we do a really bad job of displaying that. And I think that
Sure.
you're right. There are situations in which they do function in tandem, but I don't think that that's the majority. And I
Well,
don't
I
think
mean,
that that's the majority in control either.
I don't disagree with you, but is this not just another trolley problem?
I don't disagree.
Okay. I have a question though, Cole. When you talk about it or you think about going to space, do you do it without thinking about all of this? I mean, is it a
Cole,
better
you can hop on the
world?
next flight, but you're not going to ask any questions about what the rules are, what you can and can't do, how you get to live your life in those moments.
Sure, I would. I'm not going
I
to
guess
sign up
I'm,
to be a prisoner just so I can go to space. Like, that's not what I'm saying.
yeah,
Again,
I'm
I,
really
I want
wanting to,
unfettered freedom.
that's what you see it as unfettered freedom. Are you alone?
Maybe. Maybe
Oh,
sometimes, maybe not. There are times where I'm alone here.
yeah.
I just don't think that that's realistic.
Oh, I think it could be realistic.
I don't,
Wake
because
me up when it
unless,
is. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I get that, but I think even then, I don't think that that's a reality that will ever come to fruition, because there's always going to be somebody who needs to make the rules and somebody else who has to abide by them. And so when we can get there, okay, fine, we can wake you up then. But what does that world on Mars look like when it's easy and everybody can go and there still have to be rules? That is
How
civilization.
society works.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about, I mean, if you just take this galaxy and the size of it, for example, if I have a starship, who can follow me anywhere in the galaxy to enforce those rules upon me?
Anybody who wants to, because there's no rules that say they can't. So, okay, for example, you're going to hop in this ship. The world is deteriorating. So mom's coming too. Who gets to decide which way we go?
Not me.
As a small group, why can't we decide together? I've
I
got a
mean,
space minivan.
maybe we can, but she complains about speeding down the highway. You think going
Tough. She
light
can get
speed
her
is
own
going to
space
work?
minivan.
Oh my gosh. Don't pick on me.
I
Sure,
just,
it's not
I just,
realistic. I understand that, which is why I'm saying wake me up if it ever is.
yeah. Here's the deal. And I said this before, your cynicism is showing and it really is because I don't think you believe that we can ever be better than we are. And I want to believe that we can be somehow. And that may be a crock of shit, but I want to believe that.
Mom, I am ever an optimist. And I want to believe that we can be better than this too. But
I'm
can
not
we?
sure that's true. I think you are optimistic with a side of cynicism.
Or a side of reality?
Let me ask you this. Are we better than we were 60 years ago?
Depends on who you ask.
How about 100?
Depends on who you ask.
How about 1,000?
Probably
Depends on who
depends on
you
the
ask.
subject too.
That's my point.
Yeah.
We're just different.
But you would still
Yeah.
go.
I am not an unconditional, yes, I'm going to space if anyone ever invites me. Is that like, I don't, yes, I would still go if presented the opportunity to go and travel space.
Yeah. Because I think you see it just as this
Exploratory
open-ended
Yeah.
equation.
Because it is
Yeah.
virtually incomprehensible, limitless. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I admire that you can go there and think that and want that. I think that's pretty impressive because I think it's going to take that for us to go somewhere and be better.
And you think it's
Maybe I
possible
just want to
then?
go be left alone.
I don't think it's impossible, Cal, is maybe the better answer.
I mean, do you take like a Starlink and that's how you're going to call into the podcast, or
Okay, here's the thing. If we've figured out faster than light travel, we've probably also figured out faster than light Wi-Fi.
I mean, yeah, he has a point. I mean, and that's part of the fascination here. You can't just take one point and go with it. There's so many things that could affect it and change it. I mean, what's AI going to give us? Is that going to, shorten the time frame of everything that, I mean, if you take and you look at NASA from the 60s to now, and then you add AI to it, is that going to,
compound?
yeah.
I don't know.
Is that, I mean, we've talked before about the changes like in my grandmother's lifetime. There's a part of me that's absolutely fascinated about what the changes are going to look like in y'all's lifetime. And if
Yeah.
space is one of those, there's just potential there. And there's potential for good or bad. But
Just like with anything else.
yeah, it's potential. Well, I'm hoping that you don't get on a spaceship anytime soon, boo. Because I
Never
kind of
know.
like having you around.
I'm curious, like coming back to Artemis II, do you feel like this is progress? This is another step for man? Or is this just another mission that will kind of be forgotten about eventually?
Well, first off, I don't
Well,
think
I
any of
hope
those
it's the
missions have really
former.
been forgotten.
Tell that to Gail King, Katy Perry.
I bet they didn't forget theirs, you know? So I don't know if it's the start of something big, but I don't think it's just another mission either.
I'll
I
take your
think it's an
non-answer.
open door.
Do you think that it will make space feel important again? Do you think it will revitalize that kind of hunger for it?
I
This
guess it
particular
depends.
mission, no. Maybe follow on missions after it, potentially.
I
What
think
would
part of that depends on the success of this mission
Agree?
and then how you grow them from there.
Okay. What do you hope for the next generation? So mom's generation was much more in tune with what's going on in the space race. Cole and I were less so just because it wasn't nearly as prevalent in our upbringing and some of us found it in other ulterior ways. What do you hope that Gen A actually experiences and gets to experience when they look at space?
I hope they see it as the potentially unlimited pool of resources, or virtually unlimited pool of resources that it is.
I would hope that if it's not about a kid growing up wanting to be an astronaut, but that it's kids growing up thinking, where can I go? I don't have to be an astronaut. I can be, you know, a pilot or I can be a scientist
Or I can work in an office on the moon,
or I can work in an office on the moon.
and it's a 15-minute commute from my house.
Wouldn't that be cool?
I don't know. I'm just thinking about the greatest generation and baby boomers judging millennials because they took all of these different routes and different jobs. And we weren't just doctors and lawyers and nurses. We did more than that. And I mean,
Yeah,
look at influencers. You're doing that from your couch? That's unacceptable. You're lazy. You're going to the moon? How ridiculous.
I know, but
Be
gig,
better.
you'll be the greatest generation or the baby boom generation to them. And so you've experienced life a whole lot differently. Y'all are much more open-minded about different paths. Y'all may be the biggest encourager of the whole thing.
Maybe so. Because you all are going to be dead by then, not judging from the sidelines.
I mean, maybe there'll be an assisted living on Mars.
Because that we're going to talk you into. Because if that wasn't a weird enough thought,
Okay, well, then we'll go to my weird thought for the week. So, there's a new thing in sports called automated ball strike, ABS, that
sounds
just went
dirty.
into,
Sounds dirty.
it kind of does, doesn't it? Just went into play into baseball, and there's been an interesting phenomena from it already. And that is that MLB players have shrunk. Yep. Lost between 1 to 3 inches. Out of over 900 MLB players, 225 of them have shrunk, somewhere
In their
between
height.
one in their height, between 1 and 3 inches. That's a pretty big stat. And I kind of have to laugh because my single friends thought it was just on dating apps that guys lied about their height. But because of the AI features for this automated ball strike, and you have to have exact heights in order for it to work correctly to make this strike zone individual for each player, well, turns out listed heights weren't in their official stats. Guys,
Oh my God.
here's the thing. Tell the truth. You just have to stand up for the truth to be evident or to strike out.
So these are the, what did y'all call them? Like the robo umpires?
Yeah. It's a challenge system that they're adding to MLB because there is so much notoriety in umpires not doing a very good job of calling balls and strikes correctly. Because we've had the technology for a long time to superimpose a strike zone onto a TV screen and to track the ball as it moves. And you can sit there watching the game on ESPN and see that it was well outside of the strike zone and it still get called a strike.
This sounds like a problem for meta glasses to solve. Like throw them on the umpires, superimpose that same strike zone. All right, here we are. Got it. Nope.
Well, I guess in some ways that's what ABS is.
And I cannot believe how many of them have been. I mean, I guess I can. I can believe how many of them have been lying about their height.
I mean, that's a
Oh
pretty
my gosh.
significant deal, though. 3 inches. There's something about being in the 6-foot club. And
Cole,
mean-
what did you call it? 3 6s? I thought you called it something here a while back, like
6 feet, 6 figures, 6 inches. That's the baseline criteria. That's what everybody gets told you have to have.
no
which you
wonder
have
there's
to
a
think
male
about.
loneliness
I mean,
epidemic.
you're looking at MLB players who have that salary, and so you'd think there'd be a little bit of grace in the height, but
No,
maybe not.
no, it's all 3 or nothing.
Anyway,
There is no
and
picking up
good
a
news
spare
story?
in baseball.
No.
Okay. So good news this week. I thought was really interesting. It's not final. It's still in the works, but it's very definitely giving work smarter, not harder energy. And I'm super pumped about it. So the state of Montana is taking a swing at Citizens United, but not by going head to head like everybody else has tried and failed to do. Instead, they've basically said, hey, cool ruling, but what if we change the rules before that even applies? So the move that they're making, the Montana plan, is corporations only exist because states allow them to. So Montana said, great, then we'll just say corporations in our state don't get to spend money on elections. Problem solved. And you just can't tell me that that's not a little bit genius. Like I said, it's called the Montana Plan, and it hit a couple of speed bumps at first. It got tossed out by the state Supreme Court for being too complicated. But instead of folding, they went, okay, let's figure this out. They simplified it, they refiled it, and now they're collecting signatures to get it on the November ballot for this year. And I think it's super interesting because here's the kicker. Almost 80% of Americans oppose Citizens United. I think it's 74% Republicans and 84% Democrats oppose Citizens United. And we can't agree on anything. So somehow we've all agreed, so many people have agreed that this is bad news. And the state of Montana is working on this workaround. And if this actually works, it would put every state in the country in the position to flip the whole conversation on its head and start putting the power back where it makes sense with the states, with the actual people. Is it a long shot? Sure. But it's also one that feels like somebody found a crack in the system and said, oh, wait, hold on. Instead of just falling through it, let's see how we can leverage that. And like I said, they're still in the works. They're working to get it on the ballot for November in Montana. And I absolutely, undoubtedly think that it is a situation that should be making headlines. And I am very, very curious to see where it goes and how it lands.
So, but just in case somebody doesn't know, give us the Citizens United, rundown.
Corporations count as people. The government cannot limit a person's freedom of
Access
speech,
to free
and monetary
speech.
donations are considered speech.
So that's opened it up for corporations to donate almost unlimited amounts of money to political
Campaigns.
but this, and that was a Supreme Court ruling, and to come back and to have the Supreme Court re-look at that would take an exorbitant amount of agreement between all of the states to say, hey, we disagree with this. It's almost impossible for that to be brought back to the Supreme Court, except Montana is doing this, which probably could bring it back to the Supreme Court, and that would make Citizens United be reviewed. And I think that's an amazing thing.
More than that, Mom, it's not about taking it back to the United States Supreme Court. It's about the definition of
Circumventing
what.
it.
Yeah, about completely circumventing it altogether, the Supreme Court. So it's about what each individual state, how they want to treat these artificial persons, which is what a corporation is classified as. So they can say, hey, we're going to make these rules, these laws that artificial persons have to abide by. And then we don't have to go to the U.S. Supreme Court at all.
I think it's genius.
I'm
I
super
absolutely
excited.
think it's genius. And if it could get rid of Citizens United, that would be amazing.
I mean, at the very least, if it could start rocking the boat, it would count.
Yeah.
It would count for a
That's
lot.
a good news story. Let's be watching it.
I know. I'm super excited to see it. So here's hoping they make some great progress. Go, Montana. We're rooting for you.
Yeah, no joke. We are.
I love you guys.
Love you guys.
Love you too.